What you're about to hear will unsettle you. Because this feeling, it's the very thing that's been holding you captive for years. Your brain is lying to you. And the most dangerous part? You believe the lie is real. Do you remember who you were before 2020? Not just your pre-pandemic self. I mean that person. The one who woke up in the morning feeling like the day had meaning. The one who made plans, looked to the future, had energy. Now look in the mirror. Are you really the same person? Here's the scary part, you're not. And it's not entirely your fault. 2020 was the greatest psychological breaking point in human history. But no one told you how deep it went. The media said normalization. Experts said adaptation. But the truth is, your brain was reprogrammed that year. And without even realizing it, you became a new person. Before we continue, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and share what you feel while watching this video in the comments. Your experiences strengthen this community. Now, we're going on a journey together. This journey won't be comfortable. Because what I'm about to show you is the construction of your own mental prison. And maybe, for the first time, you'll find the keys to that prison. That morning. March 2020. Friday. Do you remember? You woke up and everything seemed normal. Your coffee was brewing. You might have been getting ready for work. Maybe you decided to enroll the kids in school. Then you checked your phone. 2 weeks. 2 words. In that moment, the world stopped. But you still didn't understand. Because your brain couldn't grasp the true scale of the disaster. Evolutionarily, our brains are designed to detect sudden, physical dangers. A lion. A fire. An enemy. But an invisible, slow-spreading, global threat? That's uncharted territory for your brain. That day, you talked to your co-workers. Everyone said the same thing, 2 weeks. Then everything will go back to normal. Some of you even got excited. Working from home. Finally, a chance to rest. But do you remember that night, tossing and turning in bed? That strange, unnamed feeling? Your primal alarm system was ringing. Your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, was whispering that something was very wrong. And it was right. In the first weeks, something strange happened. You became more productive. More energetic. You posted on social media about learning to bake bread at home. You took yoga classes. You watched documentaries on Netflix. This is actually an opportunity, you said. Time to improve myself. So where did this burst of energy come from? Your cortisol. Your brain had entered fight mode. Evolutionarily, you're designed to handle short-term threats. Hunting a mammoth takes 3 days. A tribal war lasts a week. Your brain pumps adrenaline and cortisol, making you hyper-alert, hyper-focused. And when the crisis ends, you rest. But the crisis didn't end. 1 week turned into 2. 2 weeks turned into a month. A month turned into 3. And your body was still in fight mode. This was the first crack. In your neuroendocrine system. Your adrenal glands began to weaken slowly. Your fear levels rose. And your brain realized, this threat isn't ending. So what did your brain do? It shut you down. Neurological circuit reset. Now I'm going to tell you a scientific fact. And this might be the most important thing you hear today. When your brain is exposed to prolonged trauma, it restructures itself as a survival mechanism. We call this neuroplasticity. Normally, it's a wonderful thing. This is how your brain learns, adapts, and grows. But what happened in 2020 was the dark side of this process. Under chronic stress, your hippocampus, the center for memory and learning, begins to shrink. At the same time, your amygdala, the fear center, grows. Your prefrontal cortex, the hub for decision-making, planning, and impulse control, goes offline. In other words, your brain turns you from a rational, forward-thinking individual into a fear-driven survival machine. And you don't notice it. Because the change is slow, silent, and internal. One day you wake up and can't make your old plans anymore. I'll start tomorrow, you say. But tomorrow comes, and you don't start. You call it procrastination. But in reality, it's your prefrontal cortex failing. Your brain no longer allocates resources to planning the future. Because evolutionarily, planning the future under threat is pointless. Surviving the present is what matters. Another day, a friend invites you out. And a heaviness settles inside you. I'm too tired, you say. But it's not physical fatigue. It's your social energy pool being depleted. Because your brain has started coding social interaction as a threat. People equals potential virus carriers. Your amygdala sounds the alarm. And the worst part, your dopamine system broke. June 2020. Do you remember that strangeness? The weather was starting to get nicer. Restrictions were easing a bit. We're normalizing now, they said. But you noticed something, you couldn't enjoy anything. That summer evening, you went outside. You watched the sunset. It was beautiful. But you didn't feel it. You listened to a song you used to love. You remember the melody. But it didn't touch you inside. You ate a favorite meal. You tasted it, but you weren't satisfied. Anhedonia. The inability to feel pleasure. Your dopamine system had collapsed. Here's how it works. Dopamine is your brain's reward chemical. But that's a misunderstood definition. Dopamine doesn't give you pleasure. It gives you motivation. It tells you, do this, you'll get a reward. When you get the reward, yes, you feel a brief pleasure. But the real dopamine surge happens during anticipation. What happened in 2020? All your anticipations vanished. That summer vacation? Cancelled. That concert? Cancelled. That dinner out? Cancelled. That goal? Postponed. That dream? Uncertain. Your brain kept releasing dopamine. Because you were constantly expecting something. The return of normalcy. The return of your life. But none of it came. And with every disappointment, your dopamine system desensitized. Known as dopaminergic adaptation. The number of dopamine receptors in your body decreases. Because constant high dopamine is harmful. Your brain makes itself less sensitive to protect you. The result? Normal things no longer make you happy. Normal goals no longer motivate you. Your dopamine threshold has risen. And that's when you started doing something dangerous. July 2020. Midnight and you're in bed. You picked up your phone. Just 5 minutes. You opened social media platforms. You started scrolling. Scroll. 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 1 a.m. Then 2. Then 3. Just 5 minutes turned into 4 hours. You're angry with yourself. Why am I doing this, you ask. But you know the answer, don't you? Because dopamine. Dopamine is produced by social media, video platforms, and news feeds. Every scroll gives your brain a tiny hit. Maybe the next post will be interesting. Maybe the next video will be fun. Variable ratio reinforcement schedule. The same mechanism used in gambling. The most powerful type of addiction. When your dopamine system collapsed in 2020, your brain frantically searched for dopamine. And it found the easiest source, screens. But here's the problem, this dopamine isn't real. It's synthetic. Dopamine from real achievement gives lasting satisfaction. Dopamine from social bonds gives a sense of connection. But digital dopamine? Empty calories. It doesn't nourish you. It just gives a temporary high. Then you crash. And you need more. You entered a loop. And you didn't even realize it. The first thing you did upon waking was check your phone, That was the first sign. Because morning cortisol is at its peak. Dopamine is waiting to be triggered. Throughout the day, you started checking notifications constantly. Second sign. Because every notification is a chance for a mini reward. At night, before bed, you began losing yourself in screens. Third sign. Because you're suppressing the day's stress with a digital drug. By the time 2021 arrived, you were a different person. Your attention span had shortened. Your patience threshold had dropped. Your expectation for instant gratification had risen. And the worst part, real life had become boring. The anatomy of societal trauma syndrome. Let's take a step back and look at the big picture. Psychologists talk about individual trauma, PTSD from a single event, a crash, an assault, a loss. The brain processes it and adapts. But what happened in 2020 was different. This was collective trauma. The entire planet faced the same threat at once. 7.8 billion people shared the same fear, uncertainty, and loss. The human brain did not evolve for this. Trauma has always been local. When one tribe goes to war, another lives in peace. Famine in one place means abundance elsewhere. Danger is contained and temporary. In 2020, there was nowhere to escape. No safe zone. The whole world lived the same nightmare. This created something unprecedented in the human psyche, global learned helplessness. Martin Seligman's famous 1960s experiment, dogs receive electric shocks they cannot avoid. Repeatedly. Even when the cage door opens, they don't flee. They've learned, nothing I do matters. The same happened to you in 2020. You stayed home. The virus spread. You wore masks. The virus spread. You got vaccinated. Variants emerged. You did everything right. But control was never yours. Your brain concluded, I am helpless. Unlearned helplessness is the core mechanism of depression. November 2020. Thanksgiving. Normally, you'd gather with family. A big table. Laughter. Memories. This year, you celebrated over Zoom. You stared at the screen. Little boxes. Frozen faces. Lag. Can you hear me? You go first. No, you go. And that feeling inside. That suffocating, nameless grief. No one had died. So why were you mourning? Because something had died. The imagined version of your life. Psychologists call it ambiguous loss. A loss that isn't physical but emotional. Living apart after a breakup. A parent with Alzheimer's. Or a vanished future. Before 2020, you had a future. Maybe not clear, but it existed. Plans. Dreams. Sentences that began with one day. 2020 erased it. Replaced it with uncertainty. One day I'll get married. When? I don't know. One day I'll do that job. Is it even possible now? I don't know. One day I'll go there. Can I? I don't know. And uncertainty is more toxic to the human brain than cortisol. Because uncertainty doesn't let you respond. Fight or flight? Neither. Wait. And while waiting, you keep draining energy. On Thanksgiving, staring at that Zoom screen, you realized you'd lost yourself and your family. The person you were and the person you could have been were completely gone. And no one acknowledged it. Everyone tried to act normal. We're fine. We're adapting. But inside you, a scream if I'm not adapting. I'm breaking. And you never voiced that scream. As 2021 began, something else strange happened. Everyone was lying. Not maliciously. Unconsciously. How are you? I'm fine. But you weren't. No one was. Psychologists call it surface acting. Hiding what you feel. Wearing a socially acceptable mask. After 2020, it became a societal norm. Because everyone was hurting. And if everyone's grieving, who do you share it with? Everyone's carrying their own burden. You can't add yours to theirs. On social media, everyone looked fine. Vacation photos. Success stories. I discovered myself during this time posts. But you knew the truth. Because you were posting the same lies. This created a second layer of trauma, the trauma of isolation. You weren't just isolated from the outside world. You were isolated from your own pain. Because you weren't allowed to give it a voice. As 2021 progressed, society started sending recovery messages. The economy is opening. Life is returning to normal. Come on, get back to it. But you couldn't return. Because the old you was gone. Identity chasm. Spring 2021. One morning you woke up. And felt like a stranger to yourself. You looked in the mirror. The face was familiar. But inside, alienation. Is this really me? Psychologists call it depersonalization, living your life as a third person. But yours was deeper. This was identity disintegration. Human identity rests on roles and relationships. You are an employee, a friend, a community member. Those roles give meaning. They tell you who you are. In 2020, most of those roles melted away. If you worked from home, the employee role blurred. No more 9 to 5. No boundary between a workplace and home. Everywhere was everything at once. And nowhere was anything real. When social contact broke, the friend role was suspended. Yes, you texted. You video called. But what about those unplanned meetups? Those let's grab coffee in a bit decisions? They vanished. And with them, the vitality of those roles. And at the deepest level, your existential security cracked. Existential security is the feeling that the world is safe and I have a place in it. Built-in childhood. When you grow up in a stable environment, a foundation forms inside. The future may be uncertain, but I can handle it. 2020 shattered that foundation. Because you learned, the world is not safe. Everything can change in an instant. And you cannot control it. This is the feeling people who experience childhood trauma know. And you, as an adult, felt it for the first time. Now there is a void inside you. And you don't know what to fill it with. Summer 2021. Restrictions lifted. People flooded the streets. Cafes opened. Concerts started. Life is returning to normal, they said. Your friend invited you out. You met at a bar. You scanned the room. Everyone's eyes were smiling. Talking. Alive. But you weren't there. Your body was. Your mind was behind a glass panel. Everyone was acting in a movie. You were just watching. Your friend told a story. Laughed. You laughed too. But it was mechanical. Your face smiled. Your insides didn't. When you got home, you felt exhausted. Not physically. Soul deep. Like you'd run a marathon. All you did was socialize for a few hours. That's when you started to realize you had changed. And the old world no longer fit. Psychologists call it post-traumatic social re-entry. Soldiers returning from war experience it. People released from prison experience it. And post-2020, you did. Because trauma changes you. Your priorities shift. Your values shift. What matters shifts. The social world didn't. People still talked about the same things. Same complaints. Stuck in traffic. Obsessed with this show. Got a new phone. And inside you thought, do these really matter? Your coping mechanism, apathy, kicked in. Everything's meaningless. Nothing matters. But this wasn't true apathy. It was defensive nihilism. you chose not to care to protect yourself. Because caring meant risking pain again. And so, you shut down. Brain's energy crisis. Let me explain why you're so exhausted. Your brain is 2% of your body weight but consumes 20% of your total energy. Massive expenditure. Under trauma, it multiplies. Your brain stays in constant alert mode. Always vigilant. Scanning for threats. This demands enormous computational power. In normal times, it conserves energy with a default mode network. Autopilot. You handle routines unconsciously. But trauma can break autopilot. It relies on a sense of safety. The future feels predictable. Routines provide security. In 2020, that vanished. Now even simple tasks require conscious effort. Making breakfast. Showering. Replying to an email. Once automatic. Now each is a decision. And every decision burns energy. This is decision fatigue. Thousands of micro-decisions pile up daily. Will I go to work today? Go outside? Attend this event? Take this risk? Pre-2020, most had default answers. Yes, I'll go to work. That's what I do. Now everyone is a question mark. Your brain spends energy on each. Result, chronic mental exhaustion. Burnout. But this isn't ordinary burnout. This is existential depletion. You're not just burned out from work. You're burned out from life. Mid-2022. One morning you woke up and asked yourself, why? Why get up? Why work? Why keep going? You had no answer. This was the darkest moment. You realized you'd lost the meaning of your life. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, discovered one thing: what keeps people alive isn't hope, it's meaning. Those who thought, when I get out, I'll do this, survived the camp's worst moments. They had a purpose. A reason. The strength to endure pain comes from meaning. Without meaning? Pain is just pain. Unbearable. 2020 destroyed sources of meaning for millions. Career meaning: this job matters. I'm contributing to the world. But the pandemic showed that if your job wasn't essential, it didn't matter. And those in essential jobs realized they weren't valued enough. Both led to loss of meaning. Social meaning: my relationships define me. I value my loved ones. But distance made the practice of that value impossible. You can't hug on video calls. You can't make eye contact through a screen. And meaning must be embodied. It must be felt in the body. Existential meaning: I have a purpose. I'm going somewhere. But when the future evaporated, the purpose vanished too. And now, in mid-2022, you're in a desert of meaning. You have morning routines. But they have no meaning. You go to work. But you don't know why. You come home in the evening. And you ask yourself, what did I do today? And why does it matter? No answer. This isn't depression. This is deeper. This is existential depression. Not a chemical imbalance. A meaning imbalance. And medication won't fix it. Therapy isn't enough either. Because the problem isn't in you. The problem is in the world you live in. Now let me tell you something. And this might actually relieve you. This isn't just your fault. 2020 was a unique event in the history of human civilization. The first global, simultaneous, prolonged trauma. And it broke an entire generation. Look at the statistics. In 2019, the major depression rate was 7%. In 2022, it rose to 28%. A four-fold increase. Anxiety disorders from 6% to 25%. Four-fold increase. Suicidal thoughts among young adults from 11% to 30%. Threefold increase. And these are just the officially diagnosed cases. The real number is probably double. Now think about this, 30% of a generation is suffering clinical level psychological pain. And the remaining 70%? They're struggling too. Just silently. This isn't pathology. This is a rational response. Because the world has become pathological. And what did society do? Pull yourself together. Move on. Everyone's having a hard time. But no one told you, you can't pull yourself together. Because you broke. And a broken bone doesn't heal just by pulling itself together. It needs to be reset. And no one taught you how to do that resetting. Fall 2022. The world is normal. But something changed for you. Did you notice? You can no longer connect with people. You talk to someone new. You ask questions, you give answers. But that click doesn't happen. That instant bond. That feeling of, I understand this person and they understand me. It used to happen. You'd meet someone and immediately feel something. Energy. Curiosity. Connection. Now? Emptiness. And you see the same in others. They can't connect with you either. Conversation stays surface level. How's the weather? How's work? No depth. This is 2020's most lasting damage. The attachment system broke. John Bowlby's attachment theory says humans learn to form secure bonds early in life. The mother-infant relationship? If a secure bond forms, the child sees the world as safe. And in adulthood, they can form secure bonds with others. But trauma can shatter the attachment system. Because trauma says, closeness is dangerous. What happened in 2020? People became sources of danger. Virus carriers. Social contact became potential risk. And your brain learned it. On a deep, evolutionary level. Your amygdala coded people as threat. Even years later, an alarm still rings in part of you. When someone approaches you. When you enter a crowded room. Even when a friend hugs you. Your conscious mind says everything is safe. But your unconscious says stay away. And this inner conflict exhausts you. Result, social anhedonia. Inability to enjoy social interaction. Spending time with people is no longer fulfilling. It's burdensome. So what do? You withdraw. You stay home. You choose solitude. But solitude creates more isolation. And isolation further damages the attachment system. A vicious cycle. But now let me tell you another truth. And this is a light in the darkness. Trauma doesn't just destroy. It also transforms. Psychologists talk about a concept, post-traumatic growth. Research shows that 70% of people who experience severe trauma become stronger, wiser, and more empathetic in the long term than they were before. How? Because trauma shatters your illusions. It breaks your negative beliefs about the world and yourself. And forces you to face reality. Before 2020, you lived with many illusions. The future is controllable. I am safe and privileged. Life is fair. My efforts will be rewarded. All lies. They always were. But you didn't realize it. 2020 shattered those illusions. And here came a choice. Either you deny the truth. You cling to the old illusions. And that brings constant disappointment. Or you accept the truth. Yes, the world is uncontrollable. Yes, life is unfair. Yes, I am vulnerable. And with that acceptance comes freedom. Because you no longer carry false expectations. You no longer focus on a future that doesn't exist, you focus on the present moment. You stop trying to control everything. You let go. This is a hard freedom. A painful freedom. But real. 2023, spring. One morning you woke up. And you felt something different. The weight was still there. The fatigue was still there. But inside you, a small shift. Acceptance. This is my new reality. And I will learn to live with it. For the first time in a long while, you thought about the future. But not the old kind. Not I will achieve this, I will do that. Softer. Maybe one day, I can feel this. Maybe one day, I'll be ready for that. You took small steps. One morning, while drinking your coffee, you truly enjoyed its taste. You didn't just drink it. You liked it. It was small. But it was something. A friend called. Before, you would have automatically said, I'm too tired. But this time, okay, just for a little while. You met. Only 30 minutes. But those 30 minutes weren't forced. They were real. When you picked up your phone and started scrolling, you paused. Why am I doing this? You asked. You found no answer. And you put the phone down. For the first time, it was a conscious choice. These were small wins. But small wins build neural pathways. And neural pathways create new habits. And habits build a new identity. You were being rebuilt. Here's the good news, the brain can always change. In 2020, your brain was rewired in a harmful way. But that process can be reversed. Neuroplasticity works both ways. Bad experiences create damaging connections. But good experiences create healing ones. Science shows the hippocampus, which shrinks under chronic stress, can regrow with positive experiences. The amygdala, hyperactive in trauma, can calm down in safe environments. Regular mental activities can reactivate a shut-down prefrontal cortex. But here's the key, it doesn't happen on its own. It requires active effort. And it's not fast. Months. Years. Because neural change is a slow process. But it's possible. Absolutely possible. Now let me tell you how to do it. Step 1. Body awareness. Healing doesn't start in the brain. It starts in the body. Because trauma lives not in your mind, but in your nervous system. The vagus nerve. The autonomic nervous system. They operate below consciousness. When you wake up, lie still for 5 minutes. Scan your body. Where is the tension? Where do you feel heavy? Notice it without judgment. Breathe. Not shallow. Deep diaphragmatic breaths. In for 4 counts. Hold for 7. Out for 8. This stimulates the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve sends the signal, you are safe. Do it regularly. Every day. Because your body learns through repetition. Step 2. Dopamine detox. Break your digital addiction. This will be radical. But necessary. For 1 week, cut social media completely. Turn off notifications. Don't check your phone in the morning. The first days will feel like hell. Because your brain craves dopamine. But after a week, you'll notice something, your attention span grows. You can feel the moment. You start finding satisfaction in real life. Then, slowly return. But use it consciously. Decide in advance, how long? 20 minutes. Then stop. Discipline. Step 3. Micro-connections. Break social isolation. But don't take big steps. Make eye contact with an acquaintance. 3 seconds. And smile. That's it. Small but real connection. Talk to the cashier at the store. Not how are you? Something real, long day. Listen to their answer. Really listen. Send a voice note to a friend instead of a text. Your voice creates more connection than words. Because tone carries emotion. Small steps. But consistent. Step 4. Meaning construction. Don't search for grand meaning. Start small. Every day, value one thing. Your morning coffee. A song. A page in a book. Say, this is enough for today. Create a ritual. Every evening, review the day for 2 minutes. What did I do today that felt good? Find one thing. No matter how small. Over time, these small meanings form a large mosaic. Step 5. Learn to be vulnerable. This is the hardest. Tell one person the truth. I'm not okay. And I need help. Maybe a friend. Maybe a therapist. Maybe a support group. But tell the truth. Because vulnerability is the door to connection. And connection is the foundation of healing. 2024, Spring. One morning you woke up. And you realized the weight had lightened. Not everything was fixed. There were still hard days. Still moments of fatigue. Still times when social situations drained you. But there was a difference. You were no longer fighting. You no longer tried so hard to get back to your old self. Because you understood that person wasn't coming back. That was a loss. Yet also a liberation. Because your old self lived in illusions. It didn't see reality. It didn't accept its vulnerability. Your new self feels more pain. But it feels more real. You went out to dinner with a friend. This time, you were simply there. You didn't plan. You didn't analyze. You just lived. And the conversation flowed. You laughed. A real laugh. The first in a long time. When you got home, you didn't feel tired, you felt full. You looked at your work. It still wasn't perfect. Sometimes it still felt meaningless. But you made a change. You started a small project. Something that gave you meaning. Maybe a hobby. Maybe volunteering. Maybe a creative outlet. And the hours you spent on that project gave you something, agency. The feeling that I can affect something. When you looked at your phone, the control was yours. You decided when to turn it on. You set the shutdown time. You managed it, not the algorithm. And most importantly, you learned to be kind to yourself. On a hard day, you didn't blame yourself. Normal, you said. This process isn't linear. It moves in waves. And you were right. But I must emphasize one important thing here. Individual healing is not enough on its own. Because 2020 was not an individual trauma. It was collective. And collective trauma requires collective healing. Your healing depends on the healing of those around you. Their healing depends on societies. And here lies a responsibility. As you heal, you must help others. Because millions around you are still struggling. Still suffering. Still breaking silently. And do you know who can help them the most? You. Because you've been through it. You know the feelings of darkness. Empathy comes from experience. And your experience is a bridge to others' healing. Maybe you talk to a friend. And share the truth. I went through it too. You're not alone. Maybe you volunteer in a community. Mental health, the elderly, the young, need is everywhere. Maybe you're simply kind to a stranger. Because you know, that person is fighting a battle. An invisible battle. Small actions create big ripples. Fall 2024. When you look at the world now, you see it differently. Through your old eyes, the world was divided into normal or abnormal. 2020 was abnormal. And you were waiting to return to normal. But now you understand, normal never existed. It was just an illusion. The world was always chaotic. Always uncertain. We were always vulnerable. We just chose not to see it. 2020 lifted the curtain. And showed the truth. And this is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying, because the illusion of safety is gone. Liberating, because you're no longer trapped in false expectations. Now you ask real questions. If the future is uncertain, how can I value the present? If control isn't in my hands, what can I influence? If everything is temporary, what do I truly value? These are existential questions. And finding their answers takes a lifetime. But at least now, you're asking the right questions. You walk. You observe people. And you see everything with new eyes. Because everyone carries a story. Each one bears a hidden weight. The fast-walking businessman, maybe there's a crisis at home. The tired-looking student may be struggling with mental health. The smiling person may be wearing a mask. And a compassion awakens in you. Judgment-free, unconditional compassion. Because you were there too. You walked through that darkness. One evening, you're talking to a young acquaintance. In their 20s. Their university years spent in the pandemic. They look at you. And ask, will this feeling ever go away? This emptiness. You pause. Because there's no easy answer. It doesn't go away, you say. But it changes. What do you mean? The emptiness you feel now is a loss. A youth you didn't live. Experiences you didn't have. And that loss is real. You have to grieve it. And then? Then you start building something new. Not with the old version of you. With the new one. And this version is more fragile. But deeper. Less illusion. More truth. Silence. So is this better? You smile. I don't know. What does a better even mean? But this is more honest. And honesty might be the most valuable thing now. The young person nods. Maybe they don't fully understand. But a seed has been planted. And you know, that seed will grow in time. Because yours did too. Now let me offer a historical perspective. Every generation experiences a trauma. Maybe war. Maybe economic collapse. Maybe social upheaval. The greatest generation lived through the Great Depression and World War II. The baby boomers grew up under the Cold War and nuclear threat. Generation X faced a wave of divorce and family breakdown. Millennials saw 9/11 and the 2008 financial crisis. Generation Z lived through 2020. Every generation says, this is the worst. And every generation is right. Because trauma is incomparable. Each one is uniquely devastating. But there's a pattern. Year 1, shock and survival. Year 2, denial and attempts to recover. Year 3, facing reality and collapse. Year 4, acceptance and rebuilding. Year 5 and beyond, integration and new identity. Those who lived through 2020 are now between the 4th and 5th years. You're at the turning point. And history shows, post-trauma generations often become more resilient, more conscious, more value-driven. The greatest generation built social safety nets after the Depression. The 60s generation launched the civil rights movement after their trauma. Millennials focused on social justice after their crises. What will your generation do? That remains unwritten. And you are the ones who will write it. As you approach 2025, you stand at a crossroads. Individually, you must now make a choice. How will you carry this trauma? Option 1, remain a victim. 2020 ruined me. And nothing will ever be the same. This is safe. Because there's no responsibility. But it's also a prison. Option 2, deny it. Nothing happened. I'm fine. Everything's normal. This is also safe. But it's a bomb. Because repressed things eventually explode. Option 3, integrate it. Yes, 2020 changed me. But I accept that change. And with it, I create a new me. This is hard. But this is freedom. Which option will you choose? And collectively, as a society, there is a similar choice. What will we learn from this trauma? 2020 showed us many things. Our systems are fragile. Inequalities are deep. Our connections are vital. Mental health is critically important. Uncertainty is inevitable. We know this now. So what will we do? Will we return to the old systems? Let everything normalize, then we'll forget? Or will we build something new? A more resilient system? A more connected community? A more conscious society? The answer to these questions lies in your actions. Now let's pause for a minute. And I want to ask you, what is your story? For the past 50 minutes, I've held up a mirror to you. Some scenes may have resonated with you. Others may have felt distant. But the truth is, this is just my narrative. The real story is yours. Where did 2020 catch you? What were you doing on the first day of lockdown? What did you feel? Which moments changed you the most? Which loss hurt the deepest? Which reality shook you? And now, where are you? Are you still walking through that dark tunnel? Or are you stepping toward the light? Maybe you are somewhere in between, swaying in uncertainty. I want you to answer these questions. But not to me, to yourself. Because stories others tell you don't start healing. Speaking your own story does. Take a notebook. Or open your phone. And write. How did 2020 change me? Write without thinking. Without filtering. No one will see it. Just you. Maybe anger will come out. Write it. Maybe sadness. Write it. Maybe shame. The feeling if I wasn't strong enough. Write it. Pour it all out. Because words give shape to emotions. And shape brings control. Then write the second question. What do I want now? Not big goals. Just right now, what do you want? Maybe rest. Maybe connection. Maybe meaning. Maybe just to breathe. Whatever it is, write it. And allow it. This isn't just a monologue. It should be a dialogue. I've talked a lot to you. Cognitive chemistry. Trauma mechanisms. Healing methods. But these are just words. Your experience is what's true. And I want to know the truth. In the comments, write this. 2020 changed me most in this way. Then fill in your change. It can be one word. It can be a sentence. Just be honest. Because something is happening here. Everyone watching this video went through the same experience. Different versions. But the same core. If you think silently, you're alone. But if you share, you have a community. Read others' comments. Maybe someone's story mirrors yours. Maybe someone put into words exactly what you feel. And in that moment, you'll realize you're truly not alone. Millions of people are in the same darkness. Some further ahead. Some behind. But we're all on the same path. Psychologists discovered something in trauma research. When trauma is shared, its weight decreases. There's a neurological explanation. Traumatic memories are stored, frozen, in the limbic system, the brain's emotional center. That's why when triggered, it feels like you're reliving it. Fresh. Raw. Intense. But when you verbalize the trauma, express it in words, something happens. The memory shifts from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex, your logic center. It gets reprocessed. Gains context. And loses power. It happened. But it's over now. And I'm still here. Sharing transforms trauma. Turns it from an uncontrollable feeling into a controllable story. But not just individually. Collectively too. If as a society we try to forget 2020, it's in the past, let's not think about it, the trauma remains repressed. And repressed trauma gets passed to future generations. This is called intergenerational trauma. Children of Holocaust survivors are affected by a trauma they didn't experience. Descendants of slavery bear witness to historical pain. Because trauma lives not just in memory, but in the body and in culture. If we don't properly place 2020 in our collective memory, our children and grandchildren will live in its shadow. But if we talk, share, make sense of it, then trauma becomes not an inheritance, but a lesson. Yes, it happened. It hurt. But we survived. And we became stronger. That's why your story matters. Not just for you, but for all of us. Now I want to share a manifesto with you. For you to remind yourself. Resilience does not mean being unbreakable. You broke. And that's not weakness. That's humanity. There are cracks. And those cracks don't shame you. They're where the light gets in. Healing is not linear. There will be good days. There will be bad days. And that doesn't mean you've gone backward. It's just part of the process. Like a wave. It rises, it falls. And every wave brings you a little closer to shore. Be kind to yourself. That voice inside, the critic saying you're not strong enough, is lying. You survived a pandemic. That's not a small feat, that's monumental strength. Asking for help takes courage. You don't have to carry it alone. Therapist, friend, support group, whoever. Reach out. No one blames a drowning person for calling for help. Why should you be blamed? Celebrate small wins. You got out of bed today. Victory. You talked to a friend. Victory. You turned off your phone early. Victory. Great transformations are made of small steps. You can't control the future. But you can live the present. Uncertainty is inevitable. But this moment is yours. You're breathing now. You're feeling now. You're living now. That's enough. 2026, spring. An imagined future. But possible. One morning you woke up. And a strange feeling, lightness. Is the weight gone? No. But you've learned to carry it. A load balanced on your shoulders, no longer dragging your feet off the ground. You looked in the mirror. Your appearance has changed. There are lines. Not from fatigue. From living. Your eyes are different too. Deeper. Less innocent. But more real. You made breakfast. And while eating, you truly tasted the flavor. You didn't just swallow. You savored. You went to work. Maybe the same job. Maybe different. But your approach has shifted. You're no longer working for career goals. You work for meaning. For contribution. For connection. A colleague looks troubled. Before, you'd walk past. Not my business. Now you pause. Are you okay? You ask. And you really mean it. You came home in the evening. Plans with friends. Before, you'd say, I'm too tired. Now you say, I'll be there. Because you understand, connection doesn't drain energy. It gives it. At night, you lay in bed. You didn't check your phone. You just rested in the silence. And felt peace. It wasn't perfect. There are still hard moments. Still triggers. Still days when the old emptiness returns. But now you know that emptiness doesn't define you. And you are bigger than it. Finally, I want to introduce one last concept. Post-traumatic wisdom. Post-traumatic growth brings strength. But post-traumatic wisdom brings perspective. What is wisdom? Wisdom is knowing there are no simple answers. Wisdom is accepting uncertainty. Wisdom is holding both pain and joy. Wisdom is seeing both fragility and resilience. Before 2020, the world was black and white. Good or bad. Success or failure. Happiness or unhappiness. But trauma teaches shades of grey. Now you understand, you can suffer and still feel gratitude. You can lose and still grow. You can break and still heal. This is paradox. And wisdom embraces paradox. The young seek certainty. If I do this, that will happen. The wise accept complexity. If I do this, maybe that happens. Maybe not. And that's okay. 2020 aged you early. If you're in your 30s, you now feel like 40. If you're in your 40s, like 50. But this isn't a loss. This is a gift. Because you gained wisdom early. And that wisdom carries the power to transform both you and those around you. I've been optimistic so far. But I need to tell you one more truth. 2020 was not the last crisis. Climate change is accelerating. Geopolitical tensions are rising. Technological disruption is deepening. More crises will come. Maybe another pandemic. Maybe economic collapse. Maybe social upheaval. And yes, that's frightening. But here's the difference. This time, you're ready. In 2020, you were caught off guard. You didn't know what to do. Your brain didn't understand the mechanisms. You had no tools. Now you do. Now you know, when uncertainty comes, return to your body. Breathe. Focus on today. Now you know, when isolation comes, protect your connections. Be creative. Distance doesn't have to break bonds. Now you know, when helplessness comes, look for small control. What can I do right now? What can I influence today? The next crisis won't be easier. But you will be stronger. Because resilience is now muscle memory. The first crisis built it. The second crisis, you'll use it. And maybe, in the third crisis, you'll teach others. Fall 2026. A cafe. You're sitting. And someone walks in. An old friend. Haven't seen them since 2019. They sit across from you. And they see the old you. The cheerful, fun, carefree person. You haven't changed a bit, they say. You smile. But inside, you think, if only you knew. You start talking. They bring up old topics. Light, surface level. You go along. But part of you is distant. Then they ask, how are you, really? And in that moment, you have to decide. Tell the truth? Or stay on the surface? You take a deep breath. 2020 changed me, you say. And I'm still processing it. Silence. Then they nod. Me too. And in that moment, the surface cracks. Real conversation begins. They tell their story. You tell yours. And the hours pass. But you don't notice. Because this isn't just a chat. This is healing. Two people who went through the same storm find each other. And that meeting lightens both of you. As you leave the cafe, you hug. A long, deep hug. Thank you, they say. For really talking today. Thank you, you say. And as you part, there's a warm feeling inside. Connection. Real, unfiltered, vulnerable connection. This is the true face of healing. Now imagine. 10 years from now. 2034, a young person, around 20, comes to you. And asks. What was 2020 like? Was it really that bad? What would you say? Maybe you'd start like this. Yes. It really was that bad. But not just because of the virus. Because of the uncertainty. The isolation. The loss of meaning. But how did you get through it? Slowly. Step by step. Sometimes we regressed. But we didn't give up. And now? Are the effects still there? You pause. You want to be honest. Yes. They still are. In some way, they always will be. Because it changed us. But that's not a bad thing. It made us deeper, more empathetic, more real. Any advice? For us, if the next crisis comes, you think, then answer. 3 things. First, don't run from the pain. Feel it. Process it. Because if you repress it, it poisons you. Second, protect your connections. People are the key to survival. Loneliness is death. Third, find meaning. Even if it's small. Because meaning gives you the strength to endure pain. The young person takes notes. Then looks at you. Thank you. I hope we never have to use it. You smile. Me too. But be ready anyway. We've come this far. This has been a journey. And now, here at the end, I want to tell you the most important thing. Everything changed in 2020. And that's okay. Your old self is gone. Yes. And you must grieve it. Your old world changed. Yes. And you must accept it. But loss is not the end. It's the beginning. Because your old self was built on illusions. Your new self is built on truth. Your old self lived in the illusion of control. Your new self embraces uncertainty. Your old self sought meaning in external success. Your new self finds meaning in inner values. And yes, this is a harder life. Absolutely. But a more honest one. 2020 was a breaking point. But every break is also an opening. The cracks are where the light gets in, I said. And now, that light is starting to come through. Yes, there's still darkness. Still struggle. Still pain. But there's light too. And every day, a little more. Now, you've finished watching this video. The screen is about to go dark. And you'll return to your daily life. But before you do, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Feel your hands. Feel your body. Feel that you are here, right now. And say to yourself, I survived. And I will keep surviving. A simple sentence. But powerful. Because survival isn't just breathing. It's living. And living, not in the old way. In the new way. Living with connection. Living with meaning. Living with truth. And yes, living with pain too. Because pain is part of life. But not all of it. Now, after you close this video, do one thing. Something small. But meaningful. Maybe send a message to a friend. Hi. I was thinking of you. Maybe open a notebook. And write one sentence. Today, I'm grateful for. Maybe just look out the window. And notice the beauty in something. A tree. A cloud. A light. Small. But real. Because healing doesn't happen with grand gestures. It happens in small moments. And you, right now, have the power to create that moment. One last thing. The reason I made this video wasn't to tell you something. It was to remind you of something. You are not alone. Being broken is not weakness. Healing is possible. And your future is not defined by your past. It's defined by your choices now. 2020 changed everything. But you are still here. And that, by itself, is a victory. If this video made you feel anything, hope, sadness, anger, relief, whatever it is, please share it in the comments. Write your story. Pour out your feelings. Break the silence. Because every comment reaches someone else. Someone saying, I'm going through this too. And that person realizes they're not alone. And so, one by one, together, we transform this trauma. From a monster into a teacher. From a wound into a scar. From an ending into a beginning. Don't forget to subscribe. Because this journey doesn't end here. It continues. And I want to walk it with you.